Okay, gang. Looks like it's time for me to go back and go back in time. I wish I could. Sometimes I wish I could go back in time, but mostly no. I'm happy to be here uh, at this age and in this body, in this mind, and this spirit. Okay, so the essence of this one is what happened at Bert van Dijk's 4-day experience in 1987. What did I do with Bert? What when I put yellow stickies out on the kitchen counter? It wasn't the five questions. Okay, what was there? And then what are a couple of significant steps from that cluster of yellow stickies to the five questions that we have now? Because there is an origin story behind each of the five questions. So I want to go into them with you now, so that as facilitators of the event, I think it helps to know where things came from. I'm a history major in college, so okay. So Bert van Dijk from this Dutch company in Holland, I know is going to show up in 2 weeks. I've just hung up the phone talking to Bert, where he said to me, when I said, "What do you want me to do with you, Bert?" And he said, "John, just do me." And I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Do whatever you would do with a really close friend that would help him become a better human being, a better leader." He said, "and that, a better parent, better partner, better husband, better father, all that." And I said, I don't know what made me say it, but I said, body, mind, and spirit. And he said, yeah, 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 whatever, all of that, whatever you want to do with me. And like I tell the story, I hung up the phone. I think Kath was right there in the kitchen, and I said, shit. She said, what? And I said, you know how I'm always complaining because I never get to do what the client needs. I'm always being asked to do something, but it's never what the client needs. They always ask me to do this, and what they need is this or this or this. And she said, yeah, what's the problem? I said, well, now this guy has said I can do whatever I want to do with him to help him in his development. So I didn't have the developpe at that point. I wish I had had. That would have been a great context. But I said to myself, okay, what are the important? I decided to go with no limits. I didn't care about corporate, any of that stuff. I just thought, okay, what's the truth? What are the chunks of developmental material or processes or experiences or activities in my life that have been helpful to me in my development? And I just started, yoga, running, centering, breathing. Then I had persona and shadow. I had life script from transactional analysis. I'm okay, you're okay. I wrote down a whole bunch of things from TA and from Gestalt. Um, and then I just started putting them into some kind of order. And I figured, okay, we need to start the day with some kind of physical activity. So I had running. I had a marathon. I had the Olympic bronze medal winner in the Montreal Olympics. It's a friend of mine, Don Cardong, a running buddy. We had running in the morning, and I didn't know Aikido then, but we had yoga actually came in the afternoon. Each afternoon we had a body, mind, spirit break, we called it. And so after lunch, we would do a chunk of work. And then just before dinner, we would do some kind of activity and then dinner. And then we always had an evening session. So, and I think I can find that design somewhere. I'll check it out after I finish talking, see if I can send you, the block design. And so, Bert came and we just, went through the sequence. I can't remember who my co-facilitator was. I don't think it was my former wife, Dai Shakti or Sandy. I think she came later. I wish I could remember. Maybe I'll find somebody who can remember. But it was always a male-female team from the beginning, and until Mark came on board with me, my friend Mark. And then we had the same plumbing, but we were male-female energy. So anyway, so Bert goes back to his boss, Chuck Van Mel, the owner of the company. And literally the next day he calls me and said, John, what did you do to Barrett? And I went, oh. And he said, oh, I got a guy in Brazil. So he started sending his country managers one at a time to Spokane, Washington. Now, the second guy was named Boudewijn. Boudewijn und Willemijn. I still remember their names. Willemijn was his wife, Willemijn. And she wanted to go shopping while he was in this experience. She wanted to go to Nordstrom's. And I said, no, 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 no. Ichak, if she's here, she needs to be in the program. It will not work to have her, doing something else while her husband is in this program. So she came into the program, and I had a male had a colleague, and sometimes we would meet most of the time the four of us together. But every now and then, my colleague would go off to be with her or or with him. We would switch around, and we just moved up. We just but it was still kind of a loose flow that we created each time. It was a kind of a, okay, this worked. We'll leave that in the stuff in the morning and the afternoon. We'll do that. That thing with the persona and the shadow. So just like doing stand-up comedy, Linnea has told me that this program has a lot of its origins in the stand-up comedy stuff that I did. And it for sure, if I tell a joke and people don't laugh, it's coming out of the program. It's coming out of the routine. I don't tell it again. That's how we got the stories in the Bible, all the parables. The reason they're still there is because they touched people. The ones that didn't touch people, we have no idea what they were like. So I just started. It was like natural selection. The things that worked we kept doing them. And after 5 or 6 of these for Echok's organization, for the Fan Mail Company, uh, uh, Bill McKendry was a guy that was the L&D guy in Aetna Insurance, big international insurance company. And so I was talking to him one night about this. He said, John, I want to come and take the program. And I said, Bill, it's not a program, because every time we did one, my colleague and I would sit down and we would kind of but after a while, the same stuff kept coming. And so we just kept following the same kind of sequence. And I can't remember exactly, but it started with the persona and the shadow, as I recall. And then we got into doing some of the deep work. And actually the GPS, which was there from almost from the beginning, was sometimes just a phrase. I remember this one guy's GPS was "I am enough," and he cried. I mean, we spent half a day getting there, but it was just a phrase. Anyway, so much to talk about here. But anyway, maybe this doesn't matter to you, but I think it's important and interesting anyway. So okay, so now Aetna starts sending so halfway through the program, Bill says, John, how many of these things can you and your team do in a month? And I said, geez, I don't know. So that night I got on the phone. I called Allie, my yoga teacher, and a couple of colleagues that were doing. I think Mark was there at that point, and I said, okay, we got this opportunity. How many can we do in a month? We talked about we didn't have a lot of bandwidth, didn't have a lot of capacity. So I said, Bill, we can do 2 a month. He said the next day. He said, okay, stand by. So the HR director from Aetna came next, Carol Rady, R-A-D-Y. And boy, as far as I'm concerned, she and Bill McKendry and Echek and Bert van Dyke are the grandparents of this program, because Aetna sent 105 of their key executives one at a time from all over the world. They came from Korea, from Asia, from Japan, from Indonesia. They came from Australia. They came from all over Asia, Eurasia, all over the minute. They sent up 105 of their people. At least 2/3 of them came as a couple. Now, one woman was single and she wasn't in a relationship. And so I said, well, who do you process your life with? And she said, oh, my twin sister. So she came. So her twin sister came. See, I think that's a great thing to say. Who do you process your life with? You want to be in the room with that person. If it's not your spouse, something's wrong, or at least you're missing a real important opportunity. So basically, after those 100 people came, there really was a kind of a set program, because at one point we had 3 LDIs going at the same time. One weekend, we did it usually Thursday and Friday. The company gave, and then Saturday and Sunday the person gave. So it was a 4-day program. And the reason it started at 12 on day one is because people could get from Hartford, Connecticut, which was where most of the insurance people were coming from, and arrive at noon. So we started at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Now we had evening sessions, remember? We have supper from 5:30 till 6:30 or 7. Then we'd have a session from 7 till 9:30 or 10. And quite often in the evening, I would just do gestalt. I mean, I would just say, let's just have an open conversation. And we did a lot of deep work in the afternoon. So I was certifying people. I didn't know it, but I was asking a few people, including my former wife, who was at the ashram, another couple of people from the ashram who really had see, it takes an important come from, as you all know. it's not just going up to the magic marker with a to the flip chart and doing shit, I mean, that's the easy part, frankly. But how do you hold the space? How do you be the space? How do you be the space that you're inviting people to be in? You can't fake that. Well, I had these 3 or 4 people coming from the ashram who, boy, they knew how to. They spent all day, all night. They spent years developing their capacity to drop into that really deep, wide open spiritual development space. So it was a no-brainer. So I remember one weekend we had 3 teams going in the same hotel. So we got together at lunch, each or dinner every now and then, kind of sitting at a large table, and they could share their experiences. But it was still a solo program for a couple. And then that went on for a number of years. And then after about 4 or 5 years, all of these executives were going back and they wanted to have the LDI for their teams. But it was really expensive, $12,000 times 10 people, $120,000. Even in 1990s and 2000, that's a lot of money. So somebody said to me, can you do a group version? I said, I'd love to do a group version. So somewhere along the line, I had called that first one the Executive Development Intensive. I remember after the second or third one with the Van Mel guys, I didn't have to sell anything. Chuck Van Mel said, okay, I got another guy for you. Okay, another guy for you. But then when Aetna started coming, there were different division heads had to sign off. The CFO for this division for this insurance company or the Asia region or whatever, they had to sign off for quite a significant chunk of money. In fact, Carol Rady said it's the most expensive program they'd ever for an individual. And so so basically, I wrote the brochure originally for the CFO, not for the HR director, but I wrote it so that a finance person would. Now it's a personal development program, but if I called it that, we would not be having this kind. It would not have happened, I don't think. And so I couldn't call it a spiritual development program. Are you kidding? So I called it a leadership development program. Well, oh yeah, we're all in favor of that. And so, like I told you, Boeing decided to put all of their high po people through it for 5 or 6 years in a row. The people that they predicted might be senior executives, and this one guy came up to me on the second or third year. He said, "I know what you're doing here." I said, "What's that?" He said, "You're doing a spiritual development program, thinly disguised as a leadership development course." And I said, "I love it. I love it." So people know what it is. You know what it is. Okay, so how do we get from that to the 5 questions? Here's where each of the 5 questions came from. The question, what's confronting me, came from a workshop that I was doing, a leadership development workshop for Stan Long, an insurance company in Portland, Oregon, about 2003, 2004. And it was an auditorium full of all of his managers, like 150 people. And he was in front. He was giving a speech about the future of the company. I'd been doing some consulting, and he'd used me as a sounding board for his speech, but I didn't know what he was going to say. And he used this metaphor. He said, "Listen, here's the deal. Why do we have to do this development among ourselves? Here's why. Because it's like a tiger in the jungle. If we don't face, any company, he uses plural, any companies that are not facing their tigers are going to become lunch for the companies that do. We're going to be a company that faces their tigers, and it starts with us in this room." And I mean, that was 30 years ago. I still remember that moment. I can tell where I was sitting. I remember the stage and everything. And it hit me. So I went back and said, okay, what's confronting me? We got to start with that. And I didn't realize until actually a few months ago what a great thing that is to start, because the minute you start with a tiger, it's like confession in the church. I didn't know that. As soon as you say, I've got a tiger, you're saying there's something going on in my life that I'm not handling with my defaults. All the stuff I'm good at, it's not working. So right away, it creates a kind of a subtle psychological contract. I'm here to get something that'll help me deal with this thing that I've not been able to deal with. And that's where my defaults aren't working. So that's where that question came from. Then the question, what am I bringing, came from a guy in England. Linnea and I went to a conference in Spain. She invited me to be a part of it. She told me about it, and I went ahead and signed up for it. Let me see if I can find it again. And so we went, and there was this real tall guy from England, and he was in one of the other groups. Hang on, I'm so sorry that I'm blanking on his name. That's just not fair. That's just not right. I'm going to hit pause here, guys. Hang on a second. Chris Henderson. This is something that worries me when I can't remember a name like that. So we were at a conference in Montserrat, Spain, uh, for the Parliament of World Religions. There were hundreds of people from around the world, from every religion that there was, pagans and all of the major religions and the minor religions. Anyway, working on how can we make the world a better place if we collaborated instead of fighting with each other. And we were heading back down the mountain from Montserrat down to Barcelona in a big bus. And as I recall, Linnea was a little late with her baggage, big surprise. And Chris, the only place where Chris could stick his feet out was way in the back of the bus. So he was sitting at the very back of the bus with his feet sticking down the aisle. And so Linnea sat on one side. So the three of us made a little triangle in the back. And by the time we had gotten from the top of the mountain down to the seashore, we had created the concept behind what we called Acacia Tree, which was a nonprofit that was designed to take business people to places in the world to do spiritual development. So anyway, that's a story for another time. Chris and I were talking about a year later about something, and he asked me the question. He said, "Well, John," I was using him as a kind of a coach, and he said, "Well, what are you bringing to the situation?" Bam! I was like, "Wow, that is a powerful question." Ka-ching! That's going to go in the program, right? So that became, what am I bringing to the encounter with the tiger? Then question 3 and 4 came together. You know this story. Dixon Delania, my friend from Seattle. Kath and I had just gotten married. I think she was pregnant with Asa. The company that my two colleagues and I, Bob Crosby and I, another guy, started was going bankrupt. We created the first computer scored survey. Had no idea how to make a business out of it. Had a fabulous product. No idea how to sell it. After 3 or 4 years, the company went upside down. Bob declared bankruptcy. The third partner left town, and I was left holding, I don't know, 150, $200,000 worth of obligations, and people that had loaned us money and my friends and everything. And so I was just really devastated. So I called my financial people together, sat in the living room. Kath was a champion, man. She was amazing. She said, "John, I'll live in a yurt if we have to." Just amazing. Anyway, so for the next year, we just my financial people said, "Don't go bankrupt if you can help it, John. You got great earning potential." Just so we dug our way out of it. I think revenue that year was 5,000 and 10,000 and 20,000. We started making some money after that, and we survived. Well, I called Dixon Delania when this happened. I said, "Dixon, I need help, man." He was a friend that I'd met through the EST network, the Werner Erhard, which is now the Landmark Forum. So Dixon comes over from Seattle to Spokane, and he's talking with me and talking with me and talking with me. And then he asked me the question, "What's been driving you?" Like, and I said, "The truth." He said, "Well, yeah." And that's when I said, "Getting out of debt and trying to survive the next month." And then he said, and this is the question that changed my life. He said, "Is that a purpose worthy of you?" You've heard me tell this. And I remember thinking, yeah, right. I was put on this earth. My purpose for being here was to get out of debt and make it through the next month. I don't think so. And he said, "Well, what would be a purpose worthy of who you are?" And I said, "Shit, I don't know." How about your tagline, "Transforming the world at work"? And I said, "Dixon, that's a statement I made up in the shower one day. It's a marketing statement." He said, "Okay, I can't help you until you figure out where you're trying to go. I just can't." So he went back to Seattle. About a month later, I called him. I said, "Okay, I'm ready." He said, "Call me when you figure out what your purpose is, what your West is." That's where West came from. So he comes over to Spokane back, and he said, "Okay, what's your purpose?" And I said, "Transforming the world at work." It turns out that's not just a marketing statement. That's been here ever since I can remember. He said, "Okay, let's go to work." And so out of that came, uh, like, so it's like, what confronts me? What am I bringing? What's been running me? Or originally it was what runs me. And I liked what's been running me because it implies it's in the past and therefore could be changed now for the future. So it was what's running me or what runs me. I liked the single word. What confronts me, what am I bringing was awkward. What runs me, and then what calls me. See, what's a purpose that's more worthy of who I am? And I decided that's like being called. That's the whole kaleo from the Greek, ecclesiastical. That's where the word for the where the church comes from. People, what what calls me, and then the idea came. Well, wait a minute. We're being called not just from the outside for some great purpose or small purpose or important, but what's calling out from inside, and that's where charisms came from. Our charisms are things that just are yearning to come out in our life and in our work. And I got that from watching my kids, Asa, Emma on the piano, David with his rapping, Jay on his guitar, Kath with her music. It's like the whole artist thing. That's where that came from. What's moving in them, and to some extent in myself. And then then the last question, what will unleash me? That came out of my study of the New Testament and the word for salvation. I don't know, I can't remember the moment, but the word for to be saved doesn't mean to. It's not an intellectual thing. It's the verb. Everything in Hebrew. Remember, Jesus was Jewish. He wasn't a Greek. He wasn't a Roman. He was a Jewish guy. So he spoke Hebrew and Aramaic. Those were his two main. He might have spoken a little Greek in the marketplace, but primarily at home he spoke Aramaic. In the temple he spoke Hebrew. So the Aramaic, those languages were the fundamental, and those languages are all verb. It's verbal based. There are no abstract nouns in Hebrew. Righteousness, which is Greek, these abstractions, or love, or truth, or beauty. No, 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 no. In Hebrew, it's acts. It right acts. It's something happening. I love it. It's a happening thing. And so the whole idea of salvation is what will release me. It's the verb to be trapped with an aleph in front of it, the little letter A, which means not, the opposite, not trapped, not squeezed, not compressed. And there are other places where the verb is to be like an army is squeezed, and suddenly it's delivered, it's released, it's unleashed, it is freed, it is saved. See, and so that concept really spoke to me more than the concept of sozo in the Greek, which is how some of the Greek translations for the verb to be saved, which means to be washed, to be clean. I'd rather go the Hebrew route, which means to have freedom of movement, maximum freedom of space. So what will unleash us? What will put us into action? What will free us up to move? Wow. I didn't realize it was going to take that long. And if you've made it this far, I am absolutely impressed that you have. I think it's important to know the history where all this came from. And none of this could have happened without these people from these organizations like Van Mel, and from Aetna and GTE sent 25 or 30 of their managers, which was a phone company in America. And now PwC, thanks to you, Gunter, and Anya, you and Przemek have cracked the code. You two have done more open LDIs than Mark and I ever did. You've done more open LDIs in this past year than Mark and I did in 7 years. That's truth, absolute truth. So anyway, I hope this has been helpful to you. I think it's important that, like when you're trying to learn music, if you know where the music, if you knew what was going on in the composer's life at that time, then you can feel the feelings. It's not just about mechanical stuff in the fingers, but you've got your whole body, mind, spirit playing the music. So I hope you can bring your whole body, mind, spirit and embody this story, this origin story, in the work that you do in this, what truly is, I think, an amazing, amazing little program. Thank you. I'm so glad to still be alive. I'm my 85th birthday coming up in a couple of weeks, and I never thought I'd be here. I'm older than anybody else in my family ever has been. I still feel like I'm full of piss and vinegar, still have some tread left on the tires, and I'm appreciative of your giving me the chance to continue to ride with you. So I'm looking forward to whatever my role turns out to be as this network evolves and moves forward. Just let me know what it is you want more of from me. I'm just going to keep pumping stuff out, and you'll have to tell me what you like and what you don't like. Take care. Lots of love to each one of you.